All right, and welcome to the Business Shower Podcast, a podcast for business owners to shine. Today, I'm sitting with Naomi Harris. Naomi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so well, Kelly. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, so tell our listeners who you are and what your business does.
Okay, so like Kelly said, my name is Naomi Harris, and I work with women who are experiencing pelvic or sexual or intimate pain that's really impacting their entire lives as well as their sex lives. Mm-hmm. And I work with them so they can transform that pain with the end goal is always epic sex and epic pleasure in their whole lives.
Okay, so let me ask you this. How did you get started in this business?
Awesome. Okay. So I am a naturopath for those of you all that don't, because not everybody knows what a naturopath is.
No, I was just gonna
right.
ask,
yeah.
What is that? Okay.
That's the common response, is the kind of slight look of confusion. So I'm like an alternative therapist. I use herbs, I use supplements, I use lifestyle and dietary advice when people have got medical conditions. Okay. And so I've been doing that for about 15 years. And then about 6 years ago, I took a little bit of a pivot towards working mostly with women and then exclusively with women. Okay. And that came about because of my own healing journey, about my healing my own sexuality and my own pelvis. Mm-hmm. And then I was really inspired to bring that to my clients. Mm-hmm. And so for the last 6 years, I've been focusing on women's sexuality, pleasure, juiciness, aliveness, and healing.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So, tell us your story and how it shaped you into who you are today. So, and when I say story, was there any particular moment that you went through that you said, okay, this is where I'm going to, start my business or, change your life for the better?
Yeah. And Kelly, can I get personal and intimate, or are you thinking more entrepreneurial?
Everyone gets personal and intimate.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So for the first maybe 32 years of my life, actually maybe 30 years of my life, I had anxiety that was, I guess you probably call it social anxiety mostly, and it was impacting my ability to get out in the world. So I was a bit of a hermit. I was an extreme hermit, and I was managing anxiety and panic attacks a lot. And one of my coping mechanisms was actually food. So I also, as well as all of that, I had disordered eating and probably an eating disorder, even though it was never diagnosed. And then I still remember a friend looked at me one day and said, you're not okay. And it was oh, she's right, I'm not okay. And I hadn't noticed in a way that I wasn't okay, because this was normal life for me. Mm. So she suggested that I start to explore alternative ways of managing everything that I had going on. And I found this one particular way, and I don't know how I got brave enough to do this. I don't know how the anxiety actually let me get in the door, because it was like a sexuality workshop. Okay. And I got in the door, I did the workshop, and there was a moment in the workshop where for me, it was the first time in my life that I could remember not needing to compulsively eat and not feeling overwhelmed with anxiety. And I was like, oh, there's some things here. This is This is interesting. This has got power. Right. So, yeah. And then I was like, okay, so I want to know more about this. So I started, I've been training intensively. It's probably up to 12 years now, just in my own healing and the power of sexuality, especially in this female body, what sexuality means and the way it impacts my entire life, my mental health, everything. So that's how I got started.
Okay. So, my next question to you is, what happens in a sexuality workshop?
The one that I attended, or the one that I now host for women?
The one that you now host for women.
Okay. So because the women that I work with have got pelvic pain, intimate pain, sexual pain, whatever their personal situation looks like. There's actually, if you come to a workshop with me or if you work with me, it's actually quite a slow and gentle and subtle thing that I offer, because what I've found and what I know from the women that I've worked with is we have these bodies and we're told that our brain is like the big, powerful, all-knowing thing. And it basically tells our bodies what it wants them to do. Mm-hmm. Our brain says we are now going to sit at this desk and work for 8 hours, and the body doesn't have a say in what actually happens. It's just like we're sitting and we're working. Mm-hmm. And that's just one example. And then you can like expand that out into the rest of your life and just like start noticing when your body actually has a say in what you're doing. And for most of it's like almost none, if not none of the time. But the unfortunate thing about that is that as we're pushing our bodies in that way, or as we're just directing our bodies in that way, stuff can happen in our bodies and it doesn't get acknowledged. And we don't ever get shown or modeled or taught how to actually understand what happens to our bodies. We don't get taught how to read our bodies. No. And so one of the things is that pain and discomfort and illness is like a language that our bodies is using to try and talk to us, but we're never taught to understand it. Yes. And so it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've got a chronic health condition. Maybe that started 25 years ago and I didn't notice. What am I going to do now? And then we turn to the medical profession and often they can't help, especially with women's pelvic stuff, because there's a big gap in need and awareness there. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so we have to take it all the way back and go, all right, now you get to start listening to your body. Now you get to start saying to your body, how slow do you want me to move? What is it that you actually want to say to me? How can I, this big, amazing brain, support you, this body, to actually heal so that we don't have to live with this pain or the itching or the burning or whatever it is? So working with me can actually look like pretty subtle and slow. Okay. But the thing, and I say this to my clients all the time, like, I know that this works and I trust that this works. So while you're thinking, oh, we're not doing anything and there's nothing happening and I need action to feel like I'm getting anywhere, I'm like, just, you can borrow my trust. It's okay. And then we're going to slow down and then we're going to see what happens. And then miracles start happening. And like those first days of pain, freeness start happening. And then they're like, oh, there's maybe something else available. And then there's like fuel for that healing fire. Okay. So it can look like super slow and super gentle and also different depending on what you're showing up with, because it's all really different.
Okay. So I'm wondering, but I'm going to get back to my questions. I have some questions that I'm going to ask you a little bit later. So what do you enjoy most about being an entrepreneur, and what do you feel like is the hardest?
Okay. I think the thing that I enjoy the most is the flexibility of the life that comes with it. 100%. I was talking to, so I'm a bit of a digital nomad. I am a digital nomad. I move around the world quite a lot, which is such a blessing. I'm currently talking to you from Greece for the summer. I know. It's the best. I mean, that is also like, it's the best. And a really dear friend of mine passed about 2 weeks ago, and it was a drawn out process, and I had time to say goodbye, and it was beautiful. And then the day when she went, I could actually take the day off, reschedule everything, have the time that I needed to like grieve. And even in the following days, and like that flexibility of that, it's such a gift.
It is.
It's like, it's amazing. And I never take that for granted. I never, ever take that for granted because it's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. So what's the hardest?
The hardest is that we have to be, I don't know if you're like Jill of all trades, or we have to like have our fingers in all of the pies and understand things that aren't necessarily our natural skill set. Yeah. And really like, oh, wow, I can feel my brain creaking sometimes when I'm like, we have to think in this way for the like spreadsheets. Please don't ever put me in front of a spreadsheet. Oh, but I have to track this stuff, right? I need to know what's happening. So it's that. I think it's like I got to do the little bits of everything, because even when I'm outsourcing, I still have to know what's happening. Yeah. And I think that's the big bit.
Okay. So, for the type of work that you do, did you have to go to school for it, or did you hire a mentor to help you out?
Oh, that's an awesome question. The mentor is great. So I did a Bachelor of Health Science to be a naturopath. So that's an Australian naturopath. That's what we do. And then as well as that, as well as stacks of other little bits and pieces that I've done, I've also done 6 years training in this sexuality, this supportive sexuality method as well, this body-based method. So as for mentor, in terms of like the business piece and the entrepreneur piece, I have a business coach, bless her, like that. Yeah. I was kind of like floundering in the ocean going, I don't know what I'm doing before her. And it's been awesome. So I'm really grateful for all of the business coaches out there. You're doing good work. And then for this piece around like the actual healing practice with the women, I have my teacher, and then we have this amazing group of women who we're all studying together, and we bounce ideas off each other and we talk things through. And some of them actually also have pain, so they let me practice on them if I have an idea that I think of ways that might work. So there is a community of support that's available to me as well, which is amazing too.
Okay. So we all know that entrepreneurship can be a tough road.
Yep.
In those difficult moments, how do you stay focused and continue to move forward and make progress?
Yeah, it's a good one, because I know that there are confident people out there in the world who are just like, I'm going to do this and it's going to be amazing. And I'm one of those people who are like, I'm going to do this. Oh, am I really going to do this? Okay, yeah. I'm doing this. Like, yeah. And the thing that really pulls me through and gets me through other messages from my women. Like, even if it's a message of, I put it on my Instagram page a couple of days ago, out of the blue, one of my women messaged me and said, I'm in such bad pain today. I'm sitting at work. I'm hiding in my car to get a break from just from having to focus. And I thought to myself, what can I do? I'm going to go to Naomi. And she went to my Instagram page and she got inspiration and she managed to work through her pain because of that. And I'm like, see, that's it. Yeah. It's the changing lives. Yeah. It's the changing lives. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, the question I had earlier was, when women hear pelvic pain, they're more so trying to figure out which type of pain we're talking about. So is there a couple of things that may go on? And I'm kind of, I'm kind of aware of some things like, PCOS and endometriosis and stuff like that. But, can you just call out some things that you would help women with? Sure. Because I'm sure there's some people that's listening that's probably going to contact you.
No. Okay. So the first thing I'll say about that is, one of the really big problems with women's pelvic pain, and that's across when I say pain, I mean itching, burning, numbness, weird things happening that you don't understand, stuff that moves around and changes, burning when you pee, like the whole deal, pain on sex. The problem is that often, and I mean like properly often, because it can take up to 8 visits to get diagnosed with something like endometriosis, like 8 different doctors, right?
Yeah.
The problem is that you get sent away with no diagnosis, like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you because we haven't got a name for it. And the woman's like, yeah, but I'm living in agony. So first of all, I will say, no matter what you're experiencing, whether it's been diagnosed or not, there is help available. There are practices that you can do, even if your brain doesn't have a name for it. And there's vaginismus, which is pain on penetration. So anything, a finger, a tampon, a penis, there sometimes cannot have any penetration at all, up to agonizing penetration. There's vulvodynia, which affects like the vulva, the outside area of the genitals, and it can be incredibly painful, or itching or burning that just won't give up. There's pain that happens just in the entrance to the vagina. There's pain that happens in the bladder, like where you pee, and then when the pee comes, there's pain that happens in the perineum, the area between the anus and the vagina. There's pain that happens in the anus. There's cramping. There's so many things that can happen in a female pelvis. They can all be supported. There are things that can be done, because I work in a way that it doesn't actually in a way matter about your diagnosis. What actually matters is your body. It doesn't really matter. In a way it does. And so I say that not to dismiss people's diagnosis, but to say, if you haven't got one, it's okay. And if you have got one, that's okay as well. We can work with it.
Mm-hmm. That's so funny you say that. When you say, sometimes it'll take 8 visits and 8 tries. So I've shared my story a couple times. I haven't shared it on my podcast. So your episode would be the first.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I pretty much I suffered from recurrent miscarriage loss. And they never found out, what was wrong with me. Like they ran tests on me. Nobody ever told me what was wrong with me. Thankfully, I am 7 months pregnant now. Yes, with my miracle baby. So amazing. It's just, I wanted to know like what was wrong. And I've changed doctors so many times. I think I went through about 6 or 7 OBGYNs. Nothing came up. And it was so, discouraging and so stressful. So I just want people to know out there, you don't have to be married to one doctor, one person. You could switch if you feel like they're not helping you. That's one of the main things I've learned. You leave and you go find another. And the holistic way, I feel like kind of helped me because my husband started researching certain things and he's like, you need to take this vitamin, that vitamin. I was on a crazy vitamin regimen and I feel like that's what corrected the issue. And amazing. Look, so.
Beautiful. And you're also like, you're living proof that you didn't have to have a diagnosis. No. And I think what you actually said is really important is that you had to advocate for yourself. Like you and your husband, you had to actually go, this matters. This is important. And we're going to put energy into it. Yes. Whatever that looks like. Mm-hmm. And I think and unfortunately, especially with women's issues, it's like the Facebook pages where the women are supporting each other, where often the information comes from, or it's from the research. And it just is the way it is at the moment. Yeah. But like advocate, stand up, say, no, it's not okay that you're dismissing me. No, it's not okay that you're treating me like it's all in my head. There's something going on in my body and I need support. Mm-hmm. And if the health professional standing in front of you can't meet you in respect in that moment, it's time to find somebody new.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly. Yes. So that's one of the things I learned. Okay. So this is like a question I ask everyone that come on my podcast. Mm-hmm. So, what was your biggest failure? Right.
Okay.
What did you learn from it?
Yes.
And how did it shape you into who you are?
Okay. I mean, I'm sure that I've had many other failures, but I'll just talk to the one that came to mind. Mm-hmm. And it's a specific to being like a practitioner who supports patients, mm-hmm. but I think it's also like relevant for anybody who works in an industry where you're actually supporting a person who's sitting in front of you. Mm-hmm. And the failure was I took on a new client. Amazing. She signed up for 8 sessions with me. 2 sessions in, 3 sessions in, she fired me. Ooh. She was like, nah, this is not working. And the thing that I did wrong, and the reason that I see it as a failure, but also it was like the best thing that could ever happen to me, was I didn't focus on what she had come to me for. I focused on what I thought she needed. So there was like this massive gap between us because I was like, you need to do this and then you're going to do this and then everything's going to be great. And she's like, I just wanted you to sit and listen to me. I was like, okay, really, really big gap. Mm-hmm. So she fired me and it rocked me. Like I was like, oh, what am I doing? I did the whole like, oh my God, I'm going to give up. What am I doing? Yeah, the whole thing. And then actually she rehired me, but she rehired me on her own terms, which was, I want you to sit and listen to me. Okay. And I was like, okay, I got it. Like message received. Mm-hmm. Actually, what is the person who you're of service to here for, and can you provide the service that they're looking for? Always focusing on that as the end result and as the North Star in the process. And it's really changed the way that I work with my clients now. So thank you to her.
Yeah. So you said something very interesting. I heard two things. I heard you didn't really, it really wasn't a failure. It was a lesson for you.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Because I'm sure after that, you were like, okay, I'm going to listen to every client that I sit down with, right? So that was like a lesson. And then in the same sense, you had customer service going on. So you made your services better, by, pleasing that one person. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's like super important. Like we've got to evolve, right?
Exactly.
As an entrepreneur in a business, especially like a service-based business, we have to evolve or it won't work.
No.
We have to read the room all the time, like read the room and see what the room is asking us for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, what does the future hold for Naomi?
The future holds for me more like heartfelt gratitude to the women that I support, and seeing them and the profound change in whatever direction it is that they're looking to have that change happen. And it also holds a whole lot more digital nomad and exploring this amazing planet that we live on. And seeing how I can make those two things work beautifully together.
Okay, awesome. So let our listeners know where they can connect with you online.
Okay, so probably the easiest place is Naomi Harris, the name that in the title. So it's www.naomiharris.com.au. That .au on the end is important because it's an Australian website. And on that website, you'll find I have a free pain-free to pleasure meditation that you can download just as like a beginning to drop into your body and seeing what's possible for transforming pain and beginning to experience good feelings in your body instead of the heavy ones that have been carried.
Awesome. Well, Naomi, thank you so much for coming on the show. I usually ask my guests if they have any questions for me before we wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
You do have questions for me?
Oh, you asked. I'm so sorry. You said guests and I said listeners. And I guess one thing, because I've listened to some of your episodes, but I haven't gone back over all of them. Mm-hmm. And so one thing that I would love to hear is what have you been getting what's the thing that lights up the entrepreneur? What keeps them going? What is it that you've noticed? Are there any patterns? What's that about?
The one thing that I've noticed, it's patterns wise, as far as the entrepreneur, it's almost like helping people. Everybody that I interview is in the helping field. At some way, shape, or form, they're helping someone grow, whether it's other business owners, whether they're a coach, whatever they are, they're helping someone. And that seems like it makes everything better. So, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm here, because I like helping
course, people. Right? That's it. And what about the hard bits? Has there been a common theme?
Yeah, it seems like I'm going to say everyone goes through something. Yeah. In order to get them to a place where they're like, nope, this is going to be the end. I'm going to break generational curses. It stops here with me.
Yeah.
So, that's like the common theme, I'm going to say.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. That's so cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And until next time, everybody, peace.